No, I just did.
Hello, Wiki Peeps. How is everybody this beautiful Saturday morning? It is a wonderful day here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Beautiful sunny skies. Beautiful day in Chicago for Miss Julie Ricketts, who's joining us, and our guest, who is in Singapore, China. Woo! Talk about trying to rigmarole the time so we could get him in here at a decent hour where we could all be up at the same time. Doug Straiton with the Scotland Project. Hello, Doug. How are you?
Yeah, hi. We're not really in China. We're in Singapore. It's a country in its own right, Max.
Singapore is a country in its own right. You know, that was a big goof up on my part.
That's okay.
So let me ask you the first question is, what brought you to WikiTree? 1 minute, she says. Hold on just a second.
I'm sorry, we're having technical difficulties this morning.
All right.
Because all we can see on the screen is me. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Looks like we've got Marty and Magnus here this morning, and I don't know why it's not flipping over to you guys. So
I got it. I took care of it for you there, Julie.
I hope you did.
Yep. So back to Doug. How did you get started on WikiTree? What brought you to WikiTree?
Yeah, it was my dad, I guess. He's the guy that got me involved in genealogy, traipsing around Scotland looking after the family tree. I was a young kid then, and by the time you end up growing up, I got into the army, got back out of the army, and we were starting to pull some of the old notes together. I ran my own website for a while, came across a wide variety of material on the web, the typical sites, Ancestry.com and that sort of stuff. But all of those never really bring a family tree together. They don't bring a global family tree together. And WikiTree offered that opportunity. And I thought, okay, I can put my family tree up and I can then interlink it with everybody else's family tree. We can get some truth into this and we can expand like a one big family tree. And that's, to me, was the aspiration. It seemed to meld with your aspiration, so I joined WikiTree. And that's a few years ago now.
And so what I hear you saying, it's the one family tree idea that actually brought you into WikiTree.
That's right. And so it was the working collaboratively with everybody else, but that to build a single family tree, but not just building a tree, actually putting truth into the tree. So
right,
this robust, the way we try to look at source for material, the way we try to make sure that the families are connected the correct way, that to me was important. There's too much fabrication, there's too much legend, there's just myth in a whole bunch of genealogy websites on the web today, and it's just rubbish, quite frankly. And WikiTree just brings it together, and at least we try. We're not perfect, but at least we try.
Yeah, we're working on it, and that's one of the things that I often tell people is that WikiTree is all about getting things right. Things might not be right, but we're going to try and find them and make them right. It's interesting to me to hear you say that that you came on because of WikiTree's One World collaborative mission, One Tree collaborative mission, because you find a lot of people like me who I literally stumbled into WikiTree, and you hear a lot of people saying, I stumbled into it. I found such and such profile on WikiTree and started looking at it and wanted to make it right, which is a part of what you said. Did you find WikiTree through a website. Were you researching websites?
Yeah, I looked at a number of them. And I was actually a contributor to Wikipedia for a long time, doing a lot of work on the British peerage pages on Wikipedia. I did a lot of the armorials, the coat of arms that you see on Wikipedia, and then I came across. I think I probably came across WikiTree itself accidentally, and I thought, okay, well, this is different to a whole lot of the others. At that stage, Wikipedia was going through a transition. There was a mafia building up in Wikipedia, effectively, which made it very difficult. There was page barons, and it made it very difficult to build truth, even into Wikipedia.
Right.
And so I thought, well, WikiTree is a good opportunity. And my focus area, which was, well, my interest area, which was early Scottish families, was badly covered in WikiTree at the time. And so I thought I could actually lend my expertise there and hope to build some truth into what were the WikiTree profiles for what now comes under the Scottish Project and the Scottish clans. So that's how I got in there. But it was, it was a deliberate effort. It wasn't accidental.
Yeah, that is so cool. There aren't a lot of people who I hear that from. So that's so cool. There are probably a lot of people now, like back when I stumbled into it, there are probably a lot of people now who come to WikiTree just because of that, because WikiTree's fame, or everybody knows about WikiTree now more than they did when I first started. You were speaking of, the reason we're all here is the Scottish and the Scotland Project, which I have up screen share here. The Scotland Project. How did you get involved in the Scotland Project? Your accent, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the accent is broadly somewhere Australian, I would think. I'm born and bred Scotland. If there's any Scots listening, I was born in Bells Hill, which is a big maternity hospital in Lanarkshire, which is just outside of Glasgow. My mum and dad were Glaswegians. Mum comes from a Highland family around Oban. My dad is what we would call a lowland family from Fife. And so it was, lived there for a while, moved up to Aberdeen, lived up there. Dad was in oil and gas. Aberdeen is a big oil and gas area. And then we took the punt, and actually it's quite interesting, Megs. I can remember my dad getting us down around the dinner table one night, and he said, right, we're going to migrate. I've got this opportunity. We can either go to Canada or we can go to Australia. Where do you kids, we're four of us, where do you kids want to go? And we said, is it cold in Canada? And we said, yes. Well, we'll go to Australia because it was warmer there. And so we ended up there, and I spent 20-something years. I joined the army pretty well straight away. It was Vietnam time, and for the next 20 years I was in the Australian military. I did some time with the Canadians, the Brits, and the US forces, German as well, and then ended up back in Scotland for a while. Took a job basically running a company out of London. So that was my stint. And then, well, I lived in, my now wife, then partner, was in Zurich, lived there, and then we ended up in Singapore. So that's how we got there. I haven't actually been back to Scotland now in 10 years, which is a bother.
But you're co-leader of the Scotland Project along with Maria Maxwell.
Yeah.
And Maria declined my invitation to come on. She said you were the pretty face of the project.
I don't know about that.
So I've got the project page up, and I'm sharing it with everybody. Do you want to start us off by telling us what the Scotland project is?
Yeah, the Scotland project itself is, there are predominantly two major projects that we look at in Scotland. One is this one, the Scotland project. The other is the Scottish Clans project. As WikiTree's matured, particularly over the last 12 months, we've had to adapt the boundaries of the two projects to meet where the whole project administration has been going. So what we do with the Scotland project is we use it as the cover project for Scotland itself, so the geography of Scotland, looking after mainly the counties, the parishes. Ancestral homes is another one that we run. We look at the Scottish peerage. We look at things like Scots in Foreign Service, which is one that's up there at the minute. That's a small project that looks at the Scots that actually fought for the armies of the United Netherlands, the Swedish Empire, the Norwegians, and the French during the period when Scotland was independent predominantly, but up until the Glorious Revolution, if you like, when William of Orange took control of Great Britain. And so that period in history is looked after under that Scots and Foreign Service period. The Scots Abroad project started off with, basically its original premise was we cover Scots migration to the United States and Scots migration to Canada to death on WikiTree, or I thought we did, but it's pretty well covered. Scots to Australia as well. But actually, before that happened, the Scots migrated to the Baltics, to Sweden, to Poland, and there are modern Poles, modern Finns, modern Swedes that carry Scottish names, and that wasn't covered at all on WikiTree. And so we kicked off this little project to look at the Scots that did that European migration before they ended up going to the Americas. The project itself actually covers part of the early American transition. I was just talking to Meg before we came on air. It covers some of the Jamaica transition when Jamaica was a Scottish colony.
I'm sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No, go on. Yep.
I say Marty was curious about thoughts and comments on the clans and how they relate to Lord Lyon.
Okay. Yeah, the Scottish Clans project is predominantly really now what we would probably term in WikiTree as a name study project, which looks at all the Scottish families. The clans themselves, there are a lot of people on WikiTree will struggle with this, and the clans themselves that we know today are more myth and legend than historically based fact. If you were to go back into the original Scottish history, there was probably only 14 clans, and all those clans were effectively disbanded by the Order of 1746. So that order destroyed the clan system. The wearing of you couldn't speak Gaelic, you couldn't wear a kilt, no clansman could carry weapons, all that sort of stuff. But then when we sort of went through the Romance period, George, guy called Sir Walter Scott, all that happened was they reinitiated gave rebirth to the clan system. And it then became very popular with the crown, who quite frankly was a Hanoverian king. I mean, he wasn't even British. And he reinstituted the clan system that we know today. So to become a clan, there are certain rules, and the clan system itself is governed by the what they call the Lion Court. So it is a court of law that exists in Scotland. It sits in Edinburgh, and its predominant focus is to look after heraldry. It looks after all aspects of all aspects of heraldry, and in that, because the coat of arms of a clan or any armiger, but a clan chief particularly, is held by the Lord Lion and authorised by the Lord Lion, he then becomes the authority for the clans. So he's the only one that can say that, yes, this particular person is a clan chief. There is an organisation called the Standing Council of Scottish Chiefs that is an informal organisation that's constituted by the chiefs themselves, who they then can rule, as every chief can rule, who is a member of that clan. Did that roughly cover it, Marty, or was that too long?
I have to give him a second to reply here.
Yeah.
Megs, do you want to move on?
Sure. The clans project page that I brought up is just chock full of stuff, tons and tons and tons of stuff. Yeah. So as a sub project, it's pretty big.
It's a project in its own right.
Right.
In WikiTree speak, it's a project in its own right. It's a standalone project. The reality is, though, that, you know, like lots of things in WikiTree, it's run by Marie and myself, right? There's two of us, and we run the Scottish project, we run the UK project, and so these tend to get discussed in the same breath.
Right.
So if someone asks a question in G2G about a Scottish clan, I may view it as part of Scotland because the question might actually be about Scotland rather than the clan itself.
Gotcha.
Or I might answer it in terms of the clan if it's about a clan rather than about Scotland. I know that the difference is in the wash, really, because it's all the same. It's just the same person answering the question.
How does somebody who's interested in all things Scotland, how does somebody get involved in the project?
You can just ask. Maria will pick up the email in the first instance. Basically, you'll get assigned to the project. You can choose to join the Scottish Clans project that in WikiTree speak is a project. You can then wear the project user badge on your profile page, whereas the Scotland project is actually a sub-project to the UK. So you would get the UK project member badge if you chose to be a member of the Scotland project. But most people actually choose to be a member of both, and they'll end up with both the Scottish Clans badge and a UK project badge.
I imagine that's going to change if the vote goes in favor of Scotland separating. We'll have to create a Scotland badge. Yeah,
we will. Interesting political problem. I can't see Theresa May saying yes just yet.
No. So what kind of things do, well, actually, I'll just start this off with, I was reading through the project and I noticed that you sponsor or you take on the project, you take on counties. You adopt a county and make it your own. Can you talk to us about that a bit?
Yeah. The way we try and devolve responsibility, I mean, two people, it's the large project. So two people can't take on the whole responsibility to run up a lot of these, will provide help. So we asked individuals to take on specific project areas, and the counties is an easy one to devolve responsibility to. So a lot of the project members will take on sponsorship of a county, like Aberdeen. Sure, if you can pull up if you could find it. And there's a project mentor for that, looks after that particular county. They develop the category page for Aberdeenshire. They'll develop the resources, the best sources to use. They operate as a point of focus for people doing research in that county, and they will facilitate and provide assistance to on the G2G and on specific questions dealing with families of that county. That's Aberdeen, yeah. That's a city. Just scroll down a bit, Max. Aberdeenshire is the first one.
Did you just call me mate?
Mags. I said, who was it? Yeah. Yeah. So you can see Michael Thomas looks after this particular county. I drew this particular map. It just shows you where Aberdeenshire is, and there's a bit of a spiel about Aberdeenshire. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll come to some of the major areas. These are the areas of Aberdeenshire. So just go up a little bit, please, Max. Yep. So these are, you can see Mar, is an earldom. So the Earl of Mar, the Earl of Buchan, the Earl of Garrick, and so on. And these are genealogical resources for the county. And you just scroll down.
Well, wait. I want to hear you pronounce the next one after Garrick.
Strathbogie?
Strathbogie?
Yeah, Bogie, yeah.
Okay.
I know. It's actually, I could take you somewhere else. There's a couple of trick ones. And so what they do is here we split out the towns in this particular case, and down under P there's parishes. So I lived in Peterhead for a long time, and then underneath, and you'll see down here there's castles in Aberdeenshire, and the county mentor looks after that sort of stuff.
I have to go there.
Yeah.
Really awesome.
That'll only be one, 5 year.
Well, and I noticed that there was a sub-project for castles and ancestral homes, which piques my interest.
Yeah, it's one that started actually a little while ago. It's one that started with enthusiasm but hasn't gone particularly far. I certainly have an interest in it, and we do a little bit of work. We now roll it up to a project that looks after castles and ancestral homes for UK. So this particular page, which was the space page that kicked it all off, is now at the moment pretty well stopped. So we've rolled up some of them. Caleverock is actually a Clan Maxwell. That's Maria's castle.
Oh, we have to pull that up. Here you go, Maria. You can see Maria owns this castle. I want to come for a visit.
Yeah, so it's that's a Maxwell castle. So it's you can visit it today. I'm not sure. I'd be pretty sure that Maria's visited it. Yeah.
How do you pronounce it?
Caleverock.
Caleverock.
Yeah.
All right.
There was actually quite a famous siege there. Edward I had see. Robert Bruce was with Edward at the siege of Caleverock. Yeah,
That's
back
fun.
in 1296. Yeah, so we try and look at areas where people are interested, and there's quite a few of them. I
just found one I like.
Yeah.
Inverary.
Yeah, Inverary.
and that goes to the Campbells.
Yeah.
Wow. What a great listing of castles. Do you have a family castle, Doug?
It's a ruin now.
Oh.
But, well, actually, they've now built a house where the castle was. It's up there near Montrose. It's called Lauriston.
Okay. I like that page.
Not far from Arbuthnot. There's this one here, the one on.
So there isn't actually a page on the Campbell Castle in Inverary.
No, a lot of these are just pictures associated with the clan.
All right.
They need to be linked up, and we need to get someone working on them. If you go to the Campbell page, though, the Clan Campbell page, you'll see a bit of a discussion on Inverary Castle.
I'm having fun trying to figure out how to navigate this information.
Yeah, so what you're looking at now is that's the clans page. So how we do this there, that we do the last names at birth, which is a little bit further down. We've got some guys that manage those up, and guys and gals. And if on the category page associated with that project, all the clans are listed.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, and each one of those clans will have a sponsor. Well, most of those clans will have a sponsor.
So Sherry Sturm and Mariana Campbell are the Campbell clan.
Yeah, they mentor it up.
Episode 4. Interesting. Clan history. I can't even say McCallian.
Yeah,
More?
McKeelan.
It's really interesting. The information.
We don't. It's just on that page there. It talks about septs. We no longer in Scotland. We no longer manage septs. These used to be families that associated themselves with larger families for protection. They fluctuated. There was never any official list, and they're still maintained in some of the old Scottish records. But officially in Scotland, we don't use the term anymore.
Okay, so I just went way off the whole project talk. So when you join the project,
So if someone comes up on the project, he wants to join. Typically, what happens? It's like a two-step process, and they'll come up. Generally, they'll come up, and they may have a specific interest. So they may have an interest in a particular clan, in which case I will point them to the clan mentor, and they can develop their family from or in association with a mentor. If they have a particular interest in a region, and that region's got a mentor, then we will introduce them to the mentor. Some of the families, some of the work we do, which goes across both clans and districts, is the Ulster Scots project we do, which are the Scots that migrated to Ulster, either through the land grants when Ulster was transitioned to, let's call it, English rule. A lot of Scots bought up property in Ulster. A lot of those Scots then ended up in the United States. So we try and manage that family transition from Scotland to Ulster to the States in a continuous flow, so that we can try and find links. That typically, that sort of work takes quite a bit of research And some of the source material for that is difficult to find. We've got the Ulster records, land records, and grant records are okay. So if you bought land there, that's okay. But the trouble is that if you're a member of a family that went there, either as a labourer or as an indentured servant, then finding that record is difficult.
And indentured servants weren't, information about them wasn't normally left in deeds or wills or anything like that, so you couldn't find them.
It's if you can find the letter of indenture, it's easy to trace. But, they're very often not found. They're generally never found in the Inquisition associated with the guy that died. So if you were to look up the Register of Inquisitions, you would never find an indentured servant there because they were property. They were regarded as property.
Right. Right. And that is a segue into the slave trade. A lot of people don't realize that Irish and Scottish people were taken into the slave trade as well. And you and I were discussing that before we started. And a lot of that route went from Ireland or Scotland through the Caribbean and then into the southern U.S.
There is a whole bunch of semantic discussion, but it's the slave. There was no real slaves, but unless you regard indentured servitude as slavery. Indentured servitude can be looked at in two different ways, and there is no doubt that people were forced into indentured servitude, which I would regard as slavery, but there is no doubt also that people volunteered for it. And people volunteered to take a period of indentured servitude for, let's say, passage to the Americas.
Right.
Whether it be what's now United States or whether it was Canada, they would take on that because they couldn't afford to pay. And right. they might have been kicked off their property, off their land, which they don't own, of course, because they were all tenanted. And then they end up having to go to the United States and, well, the American colonies, let's say. But before that, when, before Scotland and England joined, so before they became effectively before the Parliamentary Act that joined the two, Scotland owned colonies in the Caribbean, just as much as England did. And there was a particular colony. There was one in Jamaica. Jamaica was Scotland, was Scottish, and there was a particular colony in what's now the Panama Isthmus, called the Darien Colony. The Darien Colony was a complete disaster for Scotland economically and physically. Hundreds died in the colony because of disease, of malaria,
right.
Starvation, and the money that went into building that, which was incidentally about building a canal across the Panama Isthmus. We're talking now 1680.
Right.
And an almost impossible task in those days. And it was like, that broke Scotland. And it was, in fact, that was one of the principal financial reasons why Scotland had to join with England. And all of that created an enormous amount of poverty amongst some of the Scottish families that were in Jamaica. And some of them ended up in, shall we say, indentured servitude, particularly into the southern colonies, as we were talking about before. And along with that was, at that particular time when Jamaica suddenly became British, a lot of the Scots in Jamaica didn't want to be part of Britain, and so they went from Jamaica to the southern colonies.
Yeah, so there's a long history of Scottish independence.
Marty had a question about Darien. He wondered if the Darien project drive to unification. Oh, he said, never mind. You just answered that. Never mind.
I was back to the project page. I was looking, and you and I were discussing briefly that you guys actually have another project on the go within the project to rework and redo the Scotland resource information.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to go to the resources to look at them, and I couldn't get there.
Yeah. We did quite a bit of work last year to try and pull a whole bunch of recommended sources for resources for Scotland, including source material which can be used on profiles that we can actually trust. In doing that, we went through a number of these and found that we had a bunch of broken links. So we dropped the links, and now we started a little project to pull all these resources into a space page. And once we got that space page up, we'll then point all those to the space page and then take the resources out of that space page. And I think that will give everybody that's working on the project a mud map about, and give them some level of assurance that the material that they're reading actually has some validity in truth. There's, for example, there's a whole series, there's an awesome series of maps, which is now run by the National Library of Scotland, their map division, which has some amazing detail all the way down to property level in some cases, dating back to the 15th and 16th century, so that now we can link clans, as we were talking about before, we can now link clans with the piece of property that they actually own. And so that, I think that'll come up really well. It'll take us a couple of weeks to put that together, but we'll get that up there.
So if people wanted to jump in to work on that, to start helping, you probably would love to have people adding information or helping.
I really love it. If someone's got time to help with this, it's an enormous piece of work. There's no question about it. Pulling these resources together is non-trivial. Just send me an email, because yeah, love your help. We can really do with some help.
Well, actually, you have a G2G feed started for people to sponsor the counties. So possibly maybe throw up a G2G feed about people helping out with your resources page. Okay. And that way you won't have to be inundated with a bunch of emails for that.
Yeah.
Are there any other tasks that are ongoing that you need help with? Yeah,
some of the other areas we're working on, which may or may not be on that particular page, but what we ask people who join the project is which particular time frame they'd like to work in. We've now got pre-1500 constraints, which is a really good thing. So there's a couple of our projects that we really need pre-1500 people for. We've got a piece of work on the Ragman rolls. So they were the homage rolls that were mandated by Edward I in 1291 and 1296 to get all the Scottish nobles to swear fealty to Edward I. We've started to build these out. There's some pretty good source material. The people that want to work on that project need pre-1500, obviously. But if we can build out all the people who are on the homage rolls, then we'll go a long way to get some assurance back in the 13th, 14th century families that are key to some of our later families. We've kicked off some work. There's a lot of myths and legend around, as we were talking about, in fact, the Scottish migration to the migration of the tribe Scotai to Scotland, the Irish tribe. And we kicked off a piece of work to look at what did Scotland look like in the Viking period. So areas like the Kingdom of the Isles, and all those guys need pre-1500, but I can do a G2G feed on them as well. We've got small teams working on them, but you need committed resources, because sometimes, we'll see how it goes.
And does it go all the way back? Do you have a Pictish project going on?
We do. There's a project, there's a small group that's looking at Dalradia, which is was one of the early kingdoms of Scotland.
Right.
The reason for that is because a lot of the so-called Scottish kings, so now we're talking about when Scotland was unified in its, if you like, its fight against Northumbria at the time.
Right.
But back in those days, the early Dunkeld period, on WikiTree, we've got a lot of inaccuracies in that period. And if we can pull together some people that can look at Dalradia and the early Mormodoms of Scotland, then we can get some truth back in. But now we're talking profiles which are pre-1000, and
it's difficult to go back that far because the paperwork is not there like it should be.
It's very. We're so reliant on generally scriptures and material that's come out of the church. So if we've got people that can speak Latin, that's cool, because you need some of the interpretation. A lot of this source material is in Latin.
The Romans weren't able to conquer the Scots, so there are there's Roman information, but it's not very much firsthand information.
No, there's a lot of myth about that as well. The Romans did pretty well. The Romans never formed fixed towns north of the line between Edinburgh and Glasgow, but they certainly occupied southern Scotland. But we have a piece of work in the UK project, which is looking at that part of Roman Britain, and it looks at some of the Roman texts. And I've actually got physical copy of some of the original Roman texts for that period. So I can see there's a map, in fact, of where the Romans went, and that period's pretty well covered. Getting it up on WikiTree is tricky, but that period.
So the project, it looks like it's a very robust, very hardworking project. There's lots of stuff going on that you need lots of help with. I really appreciate you stopping by and talking all things Scotland to us. And I wanted to ask you one last question. What is your favorite color?
Blue.
Yeah, no. It's orange. You invited him.
Yeah, that's right. My son even put something together.
Oh, yeah.
So, brought this. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, that's very orange.
Yeah, no, it's the Royal Standard of Scotland.
Okay.
So
there you go. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
If Alex is awake and he's watching, thank you very much.
So that's the coat of arms for the King of Scotland.
So it's red, not orange.
Yeah, it's red.
Okay, well, we're going to carry on here. Let's see. Julie, do you have any more questions for Doug?
Nope.
You've had people wrapped and interested. Let's move along now. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the community. And what's going on in the community is we are growing. We are so growing. There are 13,745,793 profiles edited by 414,665 collaborative genealogists on WikiTree. The profile of the week this week is Maya Angelou, who is a poet very close to my heart. And our wonderful photo of the week, Albert an olive bud on their homestead. It doesn't say on their ox, but that's a great picture. Do you think that's her Sunday best and they're on the way to church? And look at the sod and wood house behind them. Sod roof, that's just great. The connection of the month is creator of Charlie Brown and Snoopy, Charles Schulz. And our meet our members person this week was Carol Partridge, who's the leader of the Greeter Project. And let's see, question of the week. Let's not do that one yet because Julie has a surprise for us for that.
That's actually this week's question. We're going to be talking or showing you some from last week.
Do you have a favorite photo of an ancestor? We're not going to do that right now. We're gonna go back to other things, fun things. Today, did we have any other questions in G2G though that we wanted to discuss today, Julie?
I didn't have anything. You're probably a little early for the Saturday sourcing sprint unless we have people on the other side of the world who are busy doing that today.
I have got the Saturday sourcers information up. Let's see who's working. Saturday sourcing sprints. Robert Hivittfeld, let's see, is not working this month. Oh, wow. Amanda Frank, 5. Janet Gunn, 5. Debbie Hogue, 2. Tracy Leeton, 1. Lucy Savaggio Diaz has 5. Liz Shiflett leading so far with 8. And John Sisner with 1. And the Connection Combat is going on. And the leader of that for right now, let's see, Charlotte. Is it Charlotte that's leading? No. Charlotte Smith with 259 on the Connection Combat. And
wow.
That's a lot, isn't it? But I think that's a total for the year so far. Somebody can correct me on that. And right behind Charlotte are Carol Keeling with 66. Oh, Greg Slade, 164, and then Carol Keeling, I believe, is in 3rd place. Or no, wait, it might be Ellen Smith with 86. So the Connection Combat is going on, and the Connection Combat is pick any WikiTree profile that's not connected to the main tree and try and connect it so that we can see their connection to people like A.J. Jacobs, Maureen O'Hara, and Queen Elizabeth II. And Grandma's WikiTree tip of the day. If you're looking for somebody who works in a profession, check out professional journals or newsletters with listings of members. Look for articles that your research interest may have written for the profession. Looking for osteopaths in Houston in the 1950s. Look for all the osteopath newsletters and information. So that's Grandma's tip of the day. And we're going to run on now and find Julie and talk about our WikiTree question of the week last week. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you so much, Doug, for being with us. Thank you, Julie, for hanging out and moderating, because we're going to take the chat out this week with what Julie's put together. We'll see you next week at our regular time, 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And next week, I believe we're going to be talking to the forest elf herself, Eowyn Langhoff. So if you have any WikiTree questions, bring them next week and talk to Eowyn. She's going to be talking mainly about the Rangers Project, what Rangers do, how we do it, and why we have a need for Rangers. So Julie, take it.
I have a little surprise for everybody with the pictures from last week, and I'm hoping that this goes smoothly. So here we go. Wish me luck.
Good luck.
Not working.
Not working. So let's do this.
Hold the phone, guys. I'm going to get this to work because this is something I wanted to share with you guys.
Well, in the meantime, we can talk about the photo of the week project, which Aowen does, which is kind of ties in really well with what Julie is talking about. The who have you found a favorite photo of an ancestor? And as Julie and Aowen and I were talking about these photos, we were struck by how many of the photos were so enchanting and how you felt like you could look into somebody's eyes and see their soul. There was one gentleman who has the bluest eyes in the world because in the black and white photograph, his eyes look absolutely clear. And there were a couple of paintings that were also posted. And
it was one of his father that you can see a definite family resemblance. I don't know why it's not presenting for me. So I don't know. Megs, maybe if you click on me and say present.
I did.
Then just one of us should do it. So
here we go. How about that? Try now.
Give it a try, folks. I'm sorry.
Life in the tech zone. Music is definitely playing, Julie.
Well, the music's going, but I can't get the slideshow to show up. I don't know why it's doing that. So hold on one more time. We'll do a screen share instead. I'm so sorry. This worked yesterday when I was goofing around with it. Google Hangouts are not as easy as one might think. All right. Megs, can you don't click anything?
No, I will not. I will not click anything.
Thank you. How do you like that? A little tunnel vision.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Houston,
technical glitches. We'll cut this out later.
Houston, we no longer have a problem.
Okay. And we'll see you all next week.
We will.